Ramiro.
He had 2 doubles and a single, and then he benched them.
Delgado. One of the little kids.
No, it's a calculus. Oh,
You're thinking about these keys. That one?
You're thinking of that one?
Yeah, I think so. Hi, Ruby.
So, anyway, watch them in river for calculus. And I don't know, like,
Hi, good morning. What's up, David? Good morning, sir.
football here right now.
Good morning, sir. Morning, Zach. Hi, thank you. Nice shirt. Hi, Marcy. What's up, Sean? Morning, sir. Mr. Leland, morning, sir. Alright, good morning, class. Can I get you guys' attention right up here real quick? Today, class, we are finishing our notes. So yesterday we went over half of lesson 6.5. Tomorrow we're gonna, yesterday we went over half of lesson 6.5. Today we're gonna finish 6.5 and we're gonna do a Kahoot. So we'll get started in a couple minutes. I'm gonna take a roll right now. I don't know if you guys have heard, but they told us to mention that there's gonna be a talent show. You guys are still, if you guys want to sign up, that will be room 731. But for now, I'm going to take a roll, give you guys a couple minutes to settle in. I'll post that notes assignment. That notes assignment is going to be its own notes assignment. It's a 10.1. Yesterday's a 10.1. Again, they're 5 or 6 slides. It's a short lesson. We'll work on the Kahoot, so start thinking about your partners, your group. And that's what we're going to do in class. You guys have any questions? Okay. Take a roll and then we'll start. that notes assignment up right now. Start pulling up that notes assignment class. Alright class, we're gonna get started. Remember, let's keep that same routine. You guys have any phones, put those away. You guys have any AirPods? I still see a couple AirPods, please put those away. Okay, gonna get started. Okay, today's lesson is gonna continue on the home front. Yesterday we talked about many things going on in the country. Today we're gonna continue that. So today's objectives class, students will show the analysis scale of why the need to support the war effort changed American lives. Students will show the evaluation of key terms on the lesson to better comprehend the United States economy at home and how it impacted different individuals within the country. And then students will collaborate with one another in written language using different forms of communication forms. That would be with the Kahoot class. So we're gonna play a Kahoot after this lesson. Again, it's just 5 or 6 slides. And then we're gonna play a Kahoot based on what we're learning today. Okay, some key terms that we're going to be learning class that will be on your Kahoot that I expect you guys to learn from this lesson are the Bracero program class. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about rationing class, and then we're going to talk about war bonds. So by the end of this lesson today, you should be able to answer what was the impact of American production during World War II on different groups of people within the United States. Okay. So the first slide, class, is war expensive? Should be a simple question. Yes, right? I see a lot of you guys nodding yes. Yes, the war was expensive. So the war eventually cost Americans $330 billion, class. In 6 years that the national debt of the U.S. went from 42 billion, class, to 269 billion, class. So the U.S. government had to find a way, how are we going to pay for the war effort? How are we going to pay for this? So they passed a tax that put a 5% tax on all Americans, class. And another thing they did, class, millions of Americans purchased war bonds. Does anybody remember what a war bond is? Talked about in World War I. Very close, very close. So I'm gonna give you guys an example of a war bond. So again, war costs a lot. So the way we got funding in the United States sold war bonds to its citizens. So it's like near you would buy a bond for $10, right? You buy a bond $10. This is an example. It's not necessarily an example, but it's an example. So we buy a war bond for $10, class, and in 5 or 10 years, the United States government will pay you back your $10 and even more. So they pay you $20 back. And remember, this will be like in 5 to 10 years. So again, you buy a war bond, you give $10 to the United States to help them fund the war effort, and then in 5 to 10 years, they'll give you $20 back. That is a war bond, and that's what millions of Americans are doing. So that's what a war bond is. Citizens lend money to the United States government to help with the war fund. Does that make sense, class? You guys have any questions on this slide? Okay. Fairly easy slide. Class, this is just a chart talking about how expensive war is. what do we notice? What's our federal spending here? What's the main thing that we're spending money on? You guys can see that. National defense, that's military. So 90% of our federal budget is being spent on national defense. 5% other, 4% transportation, 2% agriculture. You guys can see 90% of our funding is going towards the war effort. Again, what year did the United States get involved in World War II, class? 1941. I heard a couple whispers. So as you guys could see here, federal spending before 1941 was at a constant, and then as soon as 1941 hit, it spiked, class. 1942, 1943, 45, and 44 and 45, it was way up here close to 100, right? And this is in billions. Again, 85 million Americans, class. Over half the population purchased war bonds, and that contributed to 185 billion worth of war bonds. That makes sense? So 85 million Americans bought it, and they were able to fund 185 billion dollars because of war bonds. Again, if you would buy $10 worth of war bonds, in 10 years the United States would give you 20. So you make like a little profit, it's like you're investing. Okay, controlling shortages. Factories converting from goods to war materials made goods scarce. There were shortages and inflation. FDR created the Office of Price Administration. Class, do you guys remember what rationing is? We also talked about this in World War I. Does anybody remember what rationing is? If not, I will explain that as well. Okay, so it looks like we don't know what that is. So rationing, class, we've actually had a similar example close, like maybe 5 years ago with COVID. Do you guys remember when you guys would have to go to the store and they'll limit, like, I don't know, toilet paper sales, like you only could buy, or a carton of milk, you only could buy 1 gallon of milk or 2 gallons of milk, and after they said no, we're just trying to save because of COVID. Same thing with, I believe, toilet paper was the same thing. Same thing in World War II, but this was more related to food and materials. So Americans started rationing goods and businesses started rationing goods, regular goods and raw materials. So you would go to the store and the store would say like, hey, you only could take 3 cans of peaches, that's your limit, because we are saving some for our troops or we're saving some for other people, you know. Does that make sense? And then America did their best to make things work and help the war. Class, to remember Victory Gardens in World War I. Looks like I see some blank faces, so no. Victory Gardens, class, was just your personal garden. So instead of having these big farms, Americans were encouraged, grow your own garden, grow your own food, grow your own tomatoes, and start feeding yourself, start feeding your neighborhood. These were called Victory Gardens. Again, everything I'm talking about is trying to contribute to the war effort on the home front here in America. Any questions? We'll keep going. So only a couple more slides left, class. I'm gonna play after them. Okay. Wartime changes work for America. For wartime work changes women's lives. Sorry. Government and industry launched an all-out campaign urging women to take part of the war. Class, has anybody seen this poster down here? Does it look familiar? I see a lot of nods. What do you think that poster's telling you guys? Or women, class? What do you think it's saying? What do you think it's trying to communicate based on that American poster? Piano? That women could do the same men can do. Yes, I definitely agree with that. It's definitely saying women should be involved more in the war effort. Again, this is during World War II. This is American propaganda trying to encourage women to get involved in the war effort, class. So her name is Rosie the Riveter. It's a famous American propaganda poster. Women were finding themselves in roles that previously was not allowed for men. Again, lots of men went to war in Europe and in the Pacific. Women had to take those jobs that were vacant. And this is just a poster encouraging women to do that. So wartime work helps women move closer to achieving the American dream. They started gaining success through hard work and initiative that they previously did. So this next chart I'm going to show you guys kind of talks about how employment was changing and women contributing. So class, if we could look up here real quick, as we see here in ink, American women and work, increase in female employees during the war. Look, if you guys look, manufacturing class had a 140% increase with women. Defense industries in particular had a 460% increase, class. Women were now working in these jobs that they hadn't previously worked at. Men's average, unfortunately, were still 50% higher than women. So, and we still see here that women, 63% of men still made the workforce, and 36% of women made the female workforce. However, before World War II, this number was less than 5, class. So as you see here, from less than 5 to 36% is a big time jump. So women were involved in these in jobs now. As we see here, In 1940, there was 20%, 27%, and by 1945, there was 37%. You guys have any questions on this chart and how women were contributing to the war effort? So there's 3 more slides, class. Workers on the move. During World War II, class, California gained 2 million new residents. People started moving across the country, class. Do you guys remember why people were moving across the country? What was being created during the war? Help you guys out. There was multiple jobs being created. Remember, this is a wartime economy. There was different factories being created that supported the war effort. People were moving around the country to get jobs, and California saw an increase in 1 million new people. Cities in the north, people from the south started moving to the north. The south and southwest received billions of dollars to help fund industry and new military bases. Remember I talked about that there were 16 military bases before World War II started, and by the end there was 41. One example being number 7 in the morning. A growing economic and political force started happening because of this. People were on the move. People started coming to California for work. Okay, and we're going to see that there were in eastern coastal cities. This chart's going to talk about that. Class, what do we notice about here? Where are mainly all the factories located at? What do you think? What's this side of here? Map called East Coast, yes sir. Mainly all of them were on the East Coast. Why do we think that? What's closest to the East Coast, class? Who's over here? Somebody said it. Europe, yes sir. The majority of these factories were on the coastline of the East Coast because it was closer to Europe, closer to the war. We also noticed that they're on coastal cities here in California, one in Oregon and one in Washington, but the majority of them, class, were in coastal cities to have like faster transportation to the war. Does that make sense? You guys have any questions what we just talked about? Okay, this is the last slide, class, and then we're gonna play a video. Okay, migration changes farming. This is an important slide, class. So, lots of soldiers went to Europe and the Pacific that were once farmers. This led to a farming vacancy. There was not enough people working in the fields, class. So what did the United States government do? They had something called the Bracero program. They brought laborers, class, from Mexico to work on American farms. Has anybody heard of this program before? No? You never heard of the Bracero program? So again, the U.S. had they partnered with Mexico, and they had brought Mexican laborers to come work in the fields, to help out with the war effort, to feed Americans, and to feed soldiers abroad. Many people left ag to join the military or to move to cities. Farmers developed new farming methods. Actually, this is an interesting point too, class. Thousands of Axis of Powers, POWs, prisoners of war, were actually brought to the United States. So Japanese, Italian, and German prisoners of war were actually brought to work. That's how much of a shortage we had in labor when our allied soldiers, our American soldiers, went to war. So we even brought prisoners of war. But the majority of the labor force still, class, was the Bracero program, or Mexican farmers coming into the United States legally, and they were being paid to work on American farms, contribute to the work. The last thing I'm going to show you, class, is a video talking about the Bracero program, and then we're going to play a Kahoot. That's what we're doing. Pay attention up here. This is on the Bracero program. So eyes up here real quick. This is the last thing I'm showing you. It's 2.5 minutes.
The Second World War created a huge labor shortage at home. One way the government tried to deal with it was the Bracero program, which allowed American businesses to hire thousands of temporary guest workers from Mexico.
We have this moment of increased national production in the United States, men leaving to go to war, but at the same time increased production in terms of building ships, building airplanes, creating enough food, just getting the economy up and running to deal with the war effort. One of the things that is not getting done is that crops are not being picked efficiently at the precise right moments that they need to be done, particularly in the American Southwest, California, we heard about Texas. register to come across the border to work for a specific time period to do sort of picky work.
Bracero means farmhand in Spanish. The program merely legalized a migration that had been going on for some time. The men spent long, back-breaking days in the fields. In return, they had a steady paycheck and free housing. But even by standards of the time, their treatment was often considered inhumane.
It's a mixed program from the perspective that it does bring thousands of men in. There were a number of instances of abuses where employers were not paying what they were supposed to be paying. They weren't housing workers in ways the federal government had promised the Mexican government that they would be housed.
So many Mexicans participated in the program that by the end of the war, they formed the second largest minority in the nation after African Americans. The program continued for years after World War II because growers said they couldn't find enough Americans willing to work on their farms. In 1964, with mechanization of farming on the rise, the program was finally phased out, but not before 4.5 million Mexican nationals had been part of it. The Bracero program may have ended, but labor shortages for certain jobs persist in the United States, along with the debate about Mexican workers.
And so what you see from really World War II to today is this constant ebb and flow of policy and ideology about the place of these transient Mexican workers in the U.S. economy. And they're vital to portions of the U.S. economy. And the question becomes politically how you deal with that labor issue.
All right, class, that's the Bracero program. Just to recap today's lesson, we went over the United States on the home front, right? So what was happening inside the country. We went over key terms as the Bracero program we just mentioned. We went over rationing. We went over war bonds. The example I give you guys of us buying a war bond for $10 and maybe 10 years later, the United States government will give you back in $20. The financial cost of the war, how expensive war is. We went over again rationing goods, how you had a limit on certain products to contribute to the war. We went on wartime, how it changed women's lives, what type of new opportunities women received. We went over workers on the move, how different people were moving in different areas of the United States, primarily coastal cities. We went over migration and changes in farming, and lastly, the Bracero program. So class, you guys have any questions? We're gonna do one more thing. We are gonna play a Kahoot based on what we learned today, class. Literally about this lesson. I just wanna see how we were doing with this lesson. So I'm gonna post this Kahoot. Start thinking about your groups. You guys can move around. Go ahead, move around. Get into groups of 2 to 4. I'll pass out the group numbers right now. We're gonna play a Kahoot about what we learned today. Okay? Let me set that up. Remember class, groups of 2 to 4, that's the game pin. Put your name of the group in there, and then that's what we're gonna be doing. We got this side. Here, 4. one Kahoot, I'm giving the first place extra credit. So whoever's first gets extra credit. So for tomorrow's quiz. I'm waiting for one more group. Seven. Alright class, there's 9 groups again. This is the last part of our lesson, so if you guys, I don't think anybody has a phone up, but if you guys put those away right now, this is the last thing we're gonna do, okay? First place gets extra credit on tomorrow's quiz. You guys gotta lock in right here. Okay class. Where did many women find job opportunities during World War II? Where did many women find job opportunities during World War II? Great job, class. Yes, wartime industry, 9 out of 9. Again, many men went out to war in the Pacific and in Europe, and women filled those vacancies that were primarily considered man jobs, but obviously women were just as capable of doing that. Good job, everybody got it. See who's on the lead. Group 1. Close race though. Alright class, question 2. Blank is government controlled limits on the amount of certain goods that civilians could buy during wartime. Good job class, 9 out of 9. Rationing. We talked about rationing, how that would control the amount of certain goods that civilians could buy during wartime. 9 out of 9. Good job, class. Y'all got that one. It's going to be a race to first place. Remember, your guys' speed gives you points, so if that matters to you guys. Where could you have found much of the United States war industry during World War II? Good job, class. Coastlines. Class, unfortunately, whoever put the South, it's not the South. We didn't talk about that. It is the coastlines. Remember, most of them were located on the East Coast, closer to Europe, closer to the ocean, easy access to fund the war effort, and as well as Western coastal cities. Guys have any questions? Back to coastlines. There's a couple more questions, class. Remember, first place gets extra credit on the quiz. Group 4 now took the lead. Blank is a plan that brought laborers from Mexico to work on American farms. Gotta see 9 out of 9 on this. Great job, class. The Bracero, real quick, eyes up here. The Bracero program, again, I showed you guys a video, that was our last slide. It was a plan that brought Mexican farm workers to America to help with the war effort, to help with farms here in America. Still got 1 or 2 more questions. Group 4 is in the lead. 2 more questions, class. What was the main goal of selling war bonds by the United States government during World War II? War bonds. Somebody's getting hot on this one. Ooh, looked like we had a little trouble on this one. Alright class, looks like we had a little bit of trouble on this one. War bonds, class, that's the example I gave you guys. We're trying to fund the war effort by buying $10 bond. America paying us back 10 years later with 20. Again, we're trying to raise funds for the war effort. We're not trying to help find Americans find jobs during this time. We're helping raise funds, raise money for the war effort. Okay? There was changes on that one. Group 4 is still in the lead though. Last question, class. No, actually 2. Sorry. How was California impacted by the war industry during World War II? almost perfect class, 8 out of 9. Yes, growth in the population by millions. Remember, class, lots of people were moving to California because there was an increase from 16 military factories to 41. So there was a growth in population by millions, class. Good job. Whoever was group 4 kind of messed up. Wow. Group 3 is now in the lead class. All right, last question. Still, it's anybody's game, probably from these 4. I don't know if the other people. All right, last question, class. Last question. Did the average American benefit from opportunities given by its wartime industry in World War II? Easy question. True or false? True or false? The job class? Yes. The average American benefited from opportunities given to its wartime industry, class. That's it. Put our roles back, class. We are going to do one more thing, but this is it for right now. So go ahead and go back to your guys' seats. Put my desk back, please, in orderly fashion. Okay, so for those of you that don't have your Chromebooks out, we're going to take those out one more time. So go ahead and take out your Chromebooks. We are going to work on the notes assignment. I'm going to be walking around. Finish that notes assignment. Oh yeah, I'll click over now. So finish your guys' notes assignment. I'm going to be walking around. I know some of you guys have that finished, but to have that up, and I'll be walking around helping you guys for the remainder of the period. If you guys have my group numbers, go ahead and pass those up. I'm going to be collecting those. Pass those up if you have the group numbers. Again, class, take out your Chromebooks, open those up, get your notes assignment up. I'm gonna be walking around, checking if you guys have finished that. If you guys have any questions with that, that's what I'm gonna be doing for the rest of the class. But good job. Wait, what group number 1 again? I was supposed to take that down. Okay, you guys do extra job. Write you guys down. You said group 3, right? What was it in group 3? First name? Alright, so pull up that notes assignment. So let's pull up the assignment, the slides.
The ones from yesterday?
Yeah.
The slides or the notes?
The either one.
The slides.
Put the slides, it's easier to read there. So executive order 9066. So it's the first cycle back to the next one. Yeah, there you go. So executive order 906. Just take a look at this. That was, let's look at this key point. Remember when German, Italians, and Japanese were then, they could be like arrested or deported, or they were deemed dangerous. So
Yeah.
we would put the answer would be right here. When German, Italians, and Japanese could be subjugated to arrest or deportation. So that would be That'd be for this
And
one.
it affected Japanese Americans because they felt like they were being accused for something that they weren't.
Yeah, you could put like another word for that. Could be like persecuted.
They were persecuted.
Yeah, or, and remember when they were sent to the concentration camps? So you would want to include that as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
It's okay. Yeah, go ahead. Was that the topic 6 lesson? Well, okay, you're asking if that's the correct answer? Oh, why were Americans rationing in the United States during the war? It was necessary to war. Yeah. So you included that they were saving for the necessities of war? Yeah. I did accept that. Okay, class, do you guys have any questions on your notes assignment? You guys do have a couple discussion questions in there. Let me know if you guys. Again, class, turning this notes assignment. There's only 3 definitions on it.
What does it mean by this first? Like
The carbons.
Yeah.
So what started it? So that'd be on this last line. So pull up the last line. So the Zuzu, right? Remember when we talked about that there was Mexican migrants in LA? And there were sailors.
Yeah.
So what would you do? Oh, okay, so if you had white Americans, Mexican Americans, considered them the ones that were part of the suits.
Yeah,
What do you remember about that?
they were getting like people Americans were getting back because they were using a lot of material from
Yeah. So I would definitely include that, but it'd be more like race relations. So go back to the question. So what were the causes and consequences of the substitute, right? So the causes for racial tensions because there were some Mexican Americans there dressing a certain way. I remember they thought that the way they were dressing was kind of like wasting for the war effort
Yeah.
because there's a lot of material and stuff. So you want to include that, and you want to include race relations.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you, Mr.
Alright class, I have a couple announcements before I start lighting up. Tomorrow we will have a quiz. Tomorrow it's going to be about what we learned this week, about the home front, about from today, about from yesterday, and the lesson on Monday. It's going to be about Pearl Harbor. It's going to be about the Bracero program, rationing, stuff we learned about today, Monday, and yesterday on Wednesday. It's going to be on lesson 6.5. Remember we skipped 6.4, so it's going to be on lesson 6.5 and then 6.3. You guys have any questions? That's what we'll be doing tomorrow. 5-question quiz with documentary. Yeah, for those of you that want to quiz, yeah. You guys have any questions for me? That's our day. You guys have like around 6 minutes. You guys can start typing.